Well, welcome to A Closer Look. I am Jessica Larkin, and as you can see, we are in front of the beautiful, finished Carousel in downtown Kingsport. Joining me this weekend, first to start us off, we're going to have a multitude of guests, but Valerie Yo, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I've been here a lot lately.
So first off, tell us about your involvement just real briefly. I know you've done a little bit of everything.
Yes, but I guess I first heard about it when my husband walked into the kitchen one morning, sometime in 2008, we think. I didn't write it down. And said, Kingsport needs a carousel. And I told him that was the craziest idea I've ever heard of in my life. He was born in Binghamton, New York, and they had 6 carousels in that area that had been given to the cities of Endicott, Johnson City, and Binghamton, New York. And they're the triple cities, like we're the Tri-Cities. And Charles Johnson in 1937 had given 6 Herschel carousels to that area, and he'd grown up with them. And he walks in the kitchen and says, Kingsport needs a carousel, out of the clear blue. Well, I was on the city council, or the board of mayor and aldermen, and I knew how tight our budget was, as all cities are, and I said, that's the craziest idea. In fact, when pigs fly, we'll have a carousel in Kingsport. There's not enough money. And I said, Gail, that's probably $500,000, not knowing what it really costs. I'd never purchased a carousel. But he was determined. So, paying no attention to me, he started talking to different people, and he went to his Kiwanis Club and talked about it there and got someone interested enough to take him to Bonnie McDonnell, who is our cultural arts director, got her excited about the thought, and that turned into a trip that the city made down to Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, where there's a carousel carving school that's been going on for 30 years.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is amazing.
They watched what was going on, thought it might be possible, came back here to Kingsport. He went back to the Kiwanis Club, and they found 4 people who were interested in getting it started as to be the original carvers. They went down to Soddy Daisy and took the class. Well, it's not a class, you learn how to start from start to finish, from transparency to finished animal. And you can come back anytime for a year, and a lot of people do. They went for a week, came back, started carving in their garage or their shop, and there was no specific place that people were carving. In the meantime, my husband got ill and asked Reggie Martin to be in charge of the whole thing because he knew he wasn't going to be around. He died in April of 2010. After I finished all the things that widows do, I called Reggie Martin in January of 2011 and said, I think I want to carve a carousel animal. And I don't know how serious he thought I was. But he said, why don't you go down to the carving school down in Soddy Daisy, because we're not set up here yet. Mm-hmm. So I went to Soddy Daisy, got a hotel room, went to the studio and learned how to carve. By the time I came back, the 1st of February 2011, they had set up a studio in our community center in Lynn Garden, and that's where we did all the rest of the carving. And people started flocking in, wanting to get involved, because it was such an exciting prospect. It was an idea that was magical.
Exactly, and you're talking about these animals being carved. Every single one of these 32 animals are all hand carved by members of the community that took an investment, took a personal want to have this carousel also, just like you and your husband did, and wanted to make this possible. That amazes me that these are all hand carved by our community.
Well, you have to know how long it takes to do them too.
I cannot imagine. I know we've been following this project almost from kind of midway through to finish, and it has amazed me every step of the way how much work really does go into even just one animal.
Well, it took me 800 hours to carve my first one. I worked on it a year, and I was retired, so I could go out to the carving studio almost every day. And I worked on my unicorn. I carved a unicorn first for the little girls, and it took a year. After we finished carving, we have to sand it down to 120 grit. Then we put 3 coats of kills, and then we either paint it ourselves or turn it over to the artist. And I let the artist paint mine because I had just taken up a new hobby of carving. My second animal, which was a dancing cat, only took 500. I knew more what I was doing. There was less bondo on that one. And then after I carved that one, I got involved with carving some small animals up into the sweeps. There's 24 of those. And then when I got through those, I carved a flying pig.
And that's exactly what tops the carousel. So if you come, that's one of the first things that you see. And you said when pigs fly, well, now we have one flying.
The pig flies, yes.
It flies every day, finally in downtown Kingsport. Yes. And just talk about personally what it means to you. I know on average it takes a community about 20 years to complete a project like this, and we were able to do that in just 6 years.
It was amazing. This has always been a community that had great community spirit, and the amount of people that came forth, when they first put out a call for artists, I think 90 or 100 people signed up the first time, and they had to pay to take a class, and then they had to commit the time to to paint them. And by the time we got through, we had over 200 people that wanted to get involved in painting. We had 300 volunteers involved in this project.
It's amazing, and the hard work truly shows. Everything about this carousel from top to bottom screams Kingsport. We're going to tell you a little bit more about some of the inside stories about the animals and the running boards. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing the history of the carousel.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
We'll be right back.